of Pro Wrestling Today. This session will last about an hour. We're going to have your questions to our panel of experts up here to talk about what's going on in the business today. This is our third convention. This is the third question and answer session. It gets bigger every year. And before I even introduce the illustrious staff up here.
I like that word.
Illustrious, I got that from you.
I can spell it A-L-A-U-S.
It's like continuity.
C-U-N-G-Y.
I got a couple of results from SummerSlam, if everybody's interested. Bret Hart lost the title to the People.
What a surprise! I can't believe it! Is it possible because he's slapping Ben's kid in the bush? No.
We're going to introduce everyone, starting on my right here. We have Tim Horner from Smoky Mountain.
team here.
Okay, let's see.
One against six.
And what's your last name again? Zahn. That's Zahn from WYN out of Baltimore. Is a wrestler that I've known since I was growing up back in, when I first started watching wrestling. I certainly remember Jimmy Valiant, who was at that time then managed by the Grand Wizard, team with a beautiful body at that time, and was then managed by Captain Albano when the Valiant brothers were formed, and was perhaps the most exciting tag team ever in the WWF. Jimmy!
ZZ Top and the tattoos. If you want to watch cartoons, you spin Jimmy around for a half hour.
Sitting on Jimmy's left is one of my dearest friends in the wrestling business. I've known her. Matter of fact, I have an interesting story, Georgiann. We went to a wrestling match when 15 or 16 at the Brooklyn Roller Ramble. I was there, and my sister Donna was in the front row, and Donna sent her up to you to get your autograph at that time. And we've known you ever since. You've been a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine and a great ally in this business where sometimes allies are few and far between. Makropolus. And of course, Georgiann, Makropolus needs no introduction in the wrestling business. business, all I gotta say is the living legend, Bruno Sammartino. More tag team champions than anyone else, past, present, or future. He is a wrestling personality.
Uncle Ivan's on my team.
Hey, let Daddy's introducing me. Don't cut off his Thanks a lot, I made you world champion. Yeah, with probably Joe Pesci playing Danny DeVito's part, and Danny DeVito directed it. We're working on that White Guys Revenge of the Fixers. So we got that. We got a movie called Confrontation with Tony Curtis, Leona. So they're keeping us busy. We got Captain Lou's Little Scoop, and I'll go on and on and on and on. Go ahead.
January 18th, 1970.
That's the coup.
He's been the ultimate professional in professional wrestling, one of the true leaders in the business, and like everyone would say, hello to Ivan Koloff. Legends in the business, and of course we have some people starting up new promotions that we feel right now we got to get new blood into the wrestling business. We got to get new, strong regional territories back because the business has suffered so much over the last year. It's only two major organizations really, and there's very few independent wrestling associations out there. We are hopeful that that will change. So we're here to talk about a number of things, but I want to throw out the first question to the panel. We have promoters here, we have legendary figures in the business, we have journalists. This past year, professional wrestling has suffered its worst year, publicity-wise, attendance-wise, and a lot of people feel sad about what's happening to the business and can it be saved, quite frankly. I want to get everybody's opinion. I want to start this off with Bruno Sammartino, and then anyone else who would like to jump in after Bruno, please answer the question. Bruno, what do you think about the business so far? Can it be salvaged?
Want us to stand up there?
Yes, please.
Oh, boy, a lot of you guys here are very young, in your 20s or even younger. Some of you are older. So a lot of you, because I know the phone program I used to use here, saying that why are we critical of what was going on in wrestling with such a man, because this is moving on and coming up to the future and all that. I predict, I don't want to say I told you so, but when this all started and I came back, I retired in 81. I came back in 84 as a color commentator. The big shock hadn't started yet. And when I saw it right before my eyes, I immediately wanted out. But they tried to pursue me because I signed a contract, so I had to fulfill my time. But I was very sick, very unhappy, and so forth. Because I saw then that what was happening, I really felt was going to be the downfall of professional wrestling. I tried a couple of times, even though he and I never saw eye to eye, never liked the man. I spoke to McMahon a couple of times and suggested to him that he was driving away the real fans, and the new fans he was drawing It's going to be a fad. They're not going to be the loyal fans like I used to see. I used to be in Madison Square Garden, Boston, which my eyes could take me. I would see the same faces every time. Anyway, a lot of people disagreed with me, but I believe that in my heart. And each year that went by, I saw, even though a lot of the fans didn't, but I could see that the thing was coming to an end. And tragically, I hope that McMahon himself and his people would see that things were going downhill, that they would try to make some changes to try to turn it around. But they never did, and so I don't know if you people really are aware of just how bad things are. And it pains me because I love wrestling. A lot of people thought that I've been critical of wrestling. I am very critical of what they've done to the game that I loved all these years. But to answer your questions, can it come back? Some people agree, some disagree. I like the steps that Bill Watts has taken with the WCW, and the steps that he's taking is he wants guys to know there's going to be no room for that, because this is the only chance of it turning around. And if this fails, the only future I see in professional wrestling is that it has to die completely for maybe 5, 6, 7 years, and then maybe like in the old days, promoters will pop up like it used to be in past years in different territories, and eventually get back to basics, get rid of all the nonsense of the garbage, and get back into the basics and get back into good, solid wrestling. And I think that's what I see for the future of professional wrestling. Now,
I got to agree with Bruno Sammartino wholeheartedly. I've been in the business since 1953, just a little longer than Bruno, and I've seen ups and downs in professional wrestling. To me, it's a sport I love. I've put close to 40 years in the business, and as I said, they've damaged the sport today. I basically, in my heart, blame Vince McMahon Jr. because I feel that years ago, people would say professional wrestlers, the greatest athletes in the world, but we understand there's a certain amount of showmanship, which I wouldn't go around with rubber bands. You wouldn't get my man Jimmy here with a beard down on the floor, and I mean, it's okay. That's okay. You do a WrestleMania with Cindy Love, but not every week, a pay-per-view event, there's some Mickey Mouse and all. I believe the salvation is if people like Bill Watts, who knows the business, and the WCW get back to the basics of wrestling and make wrestling what it should be, and the independent promoters, like these gentlemen here, get out and promote and push, and when people support it, we can bring wrestling back to the days of Bruno Sammartino.
Really proud to be here. And one of the saddest things about our sport is we have some legends of our sport sitting here today that a lot of people don't know, that have no clue what a Bruno Sammartino has meant to the business, a Lou Albano, a Jimmy Valiant, and Ivan Koloff. And one of the shames of what Vince McMahon has done is he has destroyed the traditions of our business. He has destroyed the fabric of our business with what he's done. What we're trying to do, I see a lot of it in the Smoky Mountain Wrestling, what Bill Watts is doing, is we need to reestablish the folklore and the traditions of our business. These gentlemen deserve to be honest, honored. They brought us this point. They made a Vince McMahon possible, and all the man has done is literally treat him like something sticking to the heel of a shoe. You people here are great. This is where it starts. This is where we build wrestling in this country today. We are dedicated to bringing you good wrestling. The young blood of the business has to come in and start to take it over. What sells in the 90s, what sold in the 60s has to be hybrid. We all have to work together. Gentlemen like Tim, myself, Todd Gordon in Philadelphia, we need your support to keep this business alive, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in this sport. If we don't take this sport and pull it up out of the muck ourselves, we're not going to have control of it. And what's going to happen is we're going to wind up with the Japanese coming in here and taking over this country when it comes to professional wrestling. I have no problem with what they do in their presentation and style. They learn from us, just like they learn to build cars from us. And if you watch what's going on in this country and the growth towards Japanese wrestling, you can see there's a rebirth coming towards wrestling in this country. And the promoters like myself who love the business, who have deep respect for these men, I mean, I feel like a midget up here among giants. But we need people like you to come out and do things. We need things like this weekend. We don't need another year of scandals and lies and bullshit and nonsense. We need to go back to the basics and bring the sport back. And we need you. Everyone.
An intelligent man and a man of class act. The gentleman right there that just spoke knows what he's talking about. Tim Warner has a hell of a reputation. And you know what these guys are doing? We'll bring wrestling back with your help.
that's a valid point. I think that maybe that some of the wrestling fans, or maybe we could start even here at this convention to
That's
try to
right.
organize,
It's a John and Rizzy
to get a Hall of
project.
Fame started for next year at this time. And maybe have an induction ceremonies at next year's Weekend of Champions for the first Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for,
Stand up, please. Also, can you, when we call on you, just stand up and state your name and where you're from, okay?
I have a question for Captain Lou. My name is Alan from Woodside. And
Alan, how are you?
fine, thank you. And also for Bruno. I agree that Bill Watts is doing a great job, but quite honestly, he's allowing Jake Roberts to bring a snake to the ring too, and McMahon was criticized very heavily for doing the same thing.
Well, there were certain things that Bill Watts has got to get a hand on too and to cut down on. Of course, Jake Roberts has built up a reputation of going in with the snake, and I guess going down there and making a contract with Watts and still continuing to let him do it at the present. Perhaps in the future they'll get rid of the snake or something like that. I would say. I believe it's just a little too much with all the some of the things that are going on. They've got to cut down and eliminate.
Let me stick my 2 cents in. Yes, I agree with you totally. I am for Bill. I've known Bill Watts for many years. I like his work ethics where he's telling these guys that they really got to get back into wrestling. He's eliminating a lot of nonsense. But I agree with that. I was very surprised when I saw Snake and the Snake with Bill. That I thought he took a big step backwards, because if you're going to make changes, that's got to be one of the changes. That nonsense has got to go out. And frankly, I don't understand why he did that, but I don't agree with him.
I'd just like to say one thing. 20 years ago, John Tullis used to bring a snake to the ring all the time.
Yeah.
And it didn't make it right.
No,
That was stupid then, it's stupid now. So. Fine, but let me tell you, if you've known me, I was critical of my time with certain things that went on, okay? I'm not suggesting that everything was always perfect and all of a sudden. There was things, Vince McMahon one time, senior, not junior, I used to fight with the old man a lot because I was a guy who didn't believe in gimmicks. I believed in the ability of the guy in the ring. And Vince McMahon wanted to bring a guy from Los Angeles one time called the Mummy. So this went on in my day. I thought, fine, you bring the Mummy, but when the Mummy, don't put him on my card or headline him and leave me off. And then the Mummy didn't come. Let's not be critical of what's going on today by comparing that some idiotic thing after 20 years ago. It was stupid then and it's stupid now and it shouldn't go on.
From San Luis, California. I've got not really a question, but I'd like to get comments from Tim Horner on what Bruno and Lou were saying about the future of wrestling, because you started out with the territorial days. You were just coming in, and you've seen the transition firsthand. And I'd like to get your opinion and your comments as a wrestler who's involved now as to what should be done and what your opinion is on how to improve wrestling and how to get the game back to money-making proposition again for the fans and for the workers themselves. Because we all know the fans' viewpoint, we know what we want to see. But from your viewpoint, what are your comments and opinions?
Well, I can't actually top what they said because I agree with everything they said. I had the privilege of working under Bill Watts for 3 years when I first got in business. Actually, my second, third, and fourth year of business. I respect the man. He taught me a lot about this business and respect for the business. Over the years, it's changed. I worked at CW, I worked for Vince, who I can't stand, and he probably can't stand me either at this point.
Good man.
Yeah. But anyway, I worked up there, and all I asked Vince McMahon when I was up there was the opportunity to work on a level I was capable of working on. I didn't take steroids. I didn't speak French or take it at the yin yang. So I had... We can't compete with WWF or Turner dollar-wise. Talent-wise, they can't compete with us, I don't think, right now. 6 figures, you know. And then it's these people, when Bill Watts came in there going, who's this guy? You know, when he says, hey, we'll pay you what you draw. If they paid these guys what they were drawing, they'd all have second jobs. And it's going to have to change, and right here's where it's going to change. We've got a good crew with us. We got the Cornets, Garbers, the Orndors, the Rock and Roll Express. All these guys have worked for Bill Watts. They understand the business and respect the business. Uncle Alvin's worked for us. So everybody knows what we're trying to do, and they're not coming in and saying, I gotta have $1,000 a night, I gotta have $1,500 a night. They know what we're doing. Here, work with me. We know what you're doing what we want. So that's where we are, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We've had tremendous, from people, we've had letters, we've had phone calls. You people have come up today and showed that you like what we're doing. It's obviously what people want, what wrestling is. So we're going to try to give it to you. And hopefully I answered your question. I don't know if I did.
Oh, very good, Tim.
The panelists here, of course, wrestling has really changed since I first started watching it. Wrestling media today has changed a great deal as well. I host a radio talk show which pretty much talks about a lot of different things that were never talked about years ago. We're a lot more open and honest than we used to be. Do you think that the newsletters, radio talk shows like mine, we talk about insides of the business, you think it's hurt the business?
No.
I like to get everyone's opinion.
No, I don't think it has. I think it creates controversy. I think people create interest. I think you need your type of talk show. You need people like Georgiann coming out, letting the people know what's going on around the country. Some of them, like the one from California, what's the guy's name? Nelson. I'm not too crazy about all, you know, for some of the things, but Georgiann puts out a very, actually, I don't know, use the word competent letter that goes out. Your show, you let know what's going on in the world of wrestling. You're truthful, and I think that brings it out before the public. I don't think it hurts. I think it's great.
Bruno, would you like to comment?
I will not agree with that entirely. I respect Lou, but
Sure.
given the way wrestling is today, I don't blame no newsletter, no radio show, I don't blame any of them, because when Vince McMahon, in trying to do away with the State Athletic Commission, to do away with them, and he goes before the legislature and say, look, we're all a gimmick, we're all an illusion, we're all make-believe, it's all a fake, there's not anything going on. It gets picked up by the media, the newspapers, television, radio. So this is the message. I know he came to my state of Pennsylvania to do away with the commission, came right over the air, his wife, and saying that it's all in the... So how in the world, when they're doing that and admitting that and saying that, how can then you blame the newsletters, radio, television, or whatever? In my day, when none of that stuff went on, yeah, I'll tell you, all frank, to these web news, I would have resented them all. Because I didn't believe, and I thought they would have been a tremendous detriment to the business, unless, somebody, I'll tell you why, because they'll talk about what's going to happen next month with whom or whatever. If it's a newsletter to where they're talking about who's coming into the WWF or WCW and who they think would be, in their opinion, a good match or whatever, a great town, whatever, write reports about different individuals and whatever. But when they're out there to talk about that Ric Flair is going to win the title next Tuesday
Well, maybe their opinion.
no, please. They get this information from inside because the McMahons and these things let this stuff out. And all I'm saying is that it's today it fits with the way the business is. In my day, I'm being frank, in my day I would have resented all these newsletters and the radio shows that talk about the businesses they do.
Well, McMahon, I agree that he's opened it up as far as the statements, the public statements that he's made to try to get rid of the athletic commissions around the country, and that has fueled the fire of radio shows like mine and newsletters as well. But, you know, to be honest with you, I do a show that's inside the business, but I enjoyed it more back in the 70s when I was doing an interview with Jimmy Valiant and Captain Lou, and it was 10 minutes of monologuing, and it was like, you know, that sold tickets, in my opinion, you know, and sometimes I wish you could get back to those days. It's a different era, but I miss those days, I really do. Yes, Donnie, go ahead.
I like to just interject in something Bruno said, that I enjoy all the newsletters I could read. I enjoy being a part of John's newsletter and radio show. And I don't know if many people know this, but I do a lot of newsstand magazine work for Carmine, for just about everybody. And I think there's a place for both kind of understanding of fans, where I think sometimes we, and I don't mean this negatively, but I think we kind of tend to think that everybody will think like us, like everybody is quote-unquote an inside fan or quote-unquote a mark. But I think today there's too many people want to know everything before it happens, and then why go watch the match then? You know, you want to read this, something like Bruno said, well, we know somebody's going to win the title. Hey, I'm happy to know that. But on the other hand, the whole world shouldn't have to know that, because you know, it takes away going to the matches. It takes away being the fans, like telling somebody Santa Claus is dead, he's dying tomorrow or something. There's a happy medium somewhere.
But do you think that all the talk hosts and all the people that write, the media, are all going to go out there and go, okay, this is going to happen? They don't all do that. I mean, there may be some that do. I don't notice in Georgiann's letter anything detrimental. I don't notice it in right here in his show, radio show, anything detrimental to the business. I'm sure there are people that are, but you can't say all of them. It's like journalists. One journalist can be, excuse the language, a real asshole, and the other guy can be, you know, what like it is. Sure, we don't want people saying this is going to happen, that's going to, they can make a prediction. In my opinion, this is what's going to happen. Hey, that happens all the time.
I think that the bottom line is that Vince McMahon, right from the beginning when he first took over, his philosophy was he didn't want you to believe wrestling. That was the bottom line. He didn't want you to believe it. No one believes it now. They actually believe that Papa Shango set somebody's feet on fire. We're supposed to believe the referee. We're not supposed to really believe WWF wrestling or believe the characters. That's it.
Did he think it was a comedy when we didn't know at the time how many thousands of lives were going to be lost in the middle? Do you think it was a comedy when he pulled that angle with Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan with the All-American?
No, I'm not saying that. No, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying
how
that.
would you describe that?
I disagree with that completely about what you did with that. That was tasteless. That was disgusting. I agree with you 1,000%. But his philosophy is to make it a show, and the reason why, I guess, in his own mind, he rationalized that scenario, and he said, well, it doesn't matter because nobody believes us anyway. Nobody believes Sergeant Slaughter and the Iron Sheik is from Iraq and everything. It's not believable, is what I'm trying to get at. I think it's going to take a lot to turn the business around. I think it's terrific what independent promoters are trying to do, but I think it can only be done on a small level. It can be done regionally, it can be done in small towns in Pennsylvania, it can be done in Memphis. It could never be done here in New York City. Joe Goodhart tried to do it, and he's a man that's been criticized in the past.
Why did he fail?
I don't think it can be done here, personally. I think it's WWF territory.
You can build a territory right on Long Island, right in the metropolitan area. People will come if the product is good.
I disagree.
What about McMahon's turnout to the ground? What was McMahon's turnout to the ground?
See, I don't feel that there are real wrestling fans in this area. I feel that we're all in here.
I want to give you a big counterpoint. My name is Jeff Capo. I also work for Win Wrestling. 9 out of the 10 people I had come to my table today said, when are you coming to New York?
Yeah.
When are you coming to You want good quality wrestling. These people, they don't want to see McMahon. They don't care.
We have NBC calling you, let me know.
No, you're missing the point.
I'm trying to say that it's a very small percentage, I feel, of the hardcore fans who go to wrestling. Joe Goodhart is a very good example of that. A terrific promoter who delivered terrific wrestling in Philadelphia, which was like the quote-unquote biggest hardcore city in the biggest hardcore city in the country, and he lost his shirt.
Quality product.
I don't think it's going to work. That's my opinion. I don't want to be a bad guy. I'm just giving you my opinion.
I know a lot more about Joel Goodhart's operation than most people. What I'd like to say, though, is we came up here very tentatively today. When? Because we've never been here. I never even envisioned coming to New York City because I figured there's too much of other things here. But I'm very encouraged after today to come to New York City because, as Jim said, we had a tremendous response of people coming and wanting us to bring wrestling in New York City. They're tired of what they've been seeing here, and I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but we're going to come to New York eventually. Because I'm not looking to make $10,000 in a night. I'm happy to go home with $1,500. But it is here and it can be done.
Okay, we're running out of time. I'm gonna have Donnie, then I'm gonna have that gentleman over there who was raising hand, and then I'll go to you, okay?
One quick example, I bet if Smoky Mountain had a bus trip going to their shows, I bet they'd fill the buses up today.
Ed, you want to...
My question is, everybody's talking about the Carmine says the NWA, people didn't support it, the WCW. What about, this question by Koloff, 17 years ago, 1975, you were with the IWA, Bruno, WWF was the power here. What was the feeling like in a promotion with Pedro Martinez, with the wrestlers that were being booked to come into Roosevelt Stadium, Jersey City, the New York market, and try to take on the powerful McMahon machine? What was it like then as compared to what we're talking about now?
Interesting time, yeah.
It seemed like they were concerned about it at that time because they felt that everybody was good.
You couldn't get in the garden, though. Right? You had to go to Roosevelt Stadium.
But you're still doing some good houses coming in.
I think at the time that the wrestlers themselves felt very confident that they were going to draw because at that time I think wrestling was more believable. I think going back to what this whole thing we're talking about right now, the idea of I don't think people are going to be able to change what's happening with Vince McMahon, what he's doing, and I think the people are going to end up picking and choosing. Okay, I don't like what he's doing. I'm not going to go watch it. I'm going to go watch this because I like it. It's like whether you go to hockey or football or whatever sport that you're going to see, you enjoy it because there's some rules behind it, and the rules are upheld so that you can end up getting into it. Now, if everything happens and the officials have no say, pretty soon there's nothing to get into, because it runs.
Let me just say,
hot track.
can I just say one thing? You say the fans, first of all, McMahon is doing what he's doing. He's not drawing in Madison Square Garden. He wouldn't win with SummerSlam in New York. Had to go to London, England, where he's never been before. To sell it. Okay, he's drawing worse and worse and worse and worse. Yet, years ago, when Bruno was champion with Let's Take Gorilla Monsoon, they sold out 28 times in the Garden. Same people. Why did they come out and support Bruno? Why did that sell out? Why did you guys, when you come in with the ICW, you drew 20-something thousand people, didn't you? When you came in the first show with Ernie Ladd?
Who asked that? Was that you asked that
So
question?
it didn't go to our
Why
fans
they
here.
failed? I'll tell you why they failed. First of all, they had a ton of talent. They had great talent, okay? But they had one problem. We, first of all, were extremely well. You agree on? We were extremely established in New York. We were, and when Vince McMahon panicked, I can tell you that he was on the phone with me 10 times a day because McMahon was panicking because Eddie Einhorn is a very wealthy individual. That's who was behind this organization. But here's why they failed, and I told McMahon they haven't got a chance in the world, they're going to fail. And this is where wrestling comes in, and you wouldn't know. I mean, I'm not being wise because you asked the question. The reason why they couldn't make it, I told McMahon, you're worrying over nothing. They can't make it. Not because they didn't have great talent, they did. But number one, we were so established, and everything we were doing was so great that we were selling out all over, all the time. And secondly, I told McMahon, they can't fail because they got a guy named Pedro Martinez running it. And when you have someone like that guy running it, there was no way of making it. So it wasn't just a question of because it was an opposition. Because I'll guarantee you, if they had the proper people, okay, they would have given us one hell of a battle. But they had the talent and they had idiots running the organization. And they had zero leadership. And that's why I didn't fear them for 1 minute. Not that I wish these guys bad luck, because as far as I'm concerned, competition was always good. But that's why they failed. It wasn't because we had a good program and we were solid and we were hard to beat to start off with. But then when they came in with all this stuff and they had an idiot running the organization, that's why they failed. They couldn't give us any competition.
WWF had a show at the Nassau Coliseum. WCW had a show out in Philadelphia. My friend Mike and I drove
almost 4 hours out of our way to go to Philadelphia to see the WCW show rather than the WWF, and the WWF show is 20 minutes away.
You're an educated wrestling fan. Most people aren't educated wrestling fans. Donnie Leibel is an educated wrestling fan, a man who's been doing it for years. And I believe this is correct, Donnie. You haven't seen a WWF a pay-per-view in years, all right? You just won't watch it because it's just not
I
worth
see
it.
them, I don't pay for them.
Right.
I got Mike from College Point. Hubie, I hate to tell you this, you're wrong. Any federation can build any fan base anywhere. It just depends on the right leadership. If the NWA had the proper leadership when they were in Nassau, they had Crockett and Dusty who had run the same angles 30 billion times. And then they screwed up on tickets on their first major show at Nassau. That's why they failed there.
Those fans came out, weren't they coming out? And then there was wrong times on the tickets.
Well, I agree with you. If they had the correct leadership, if they had professional people that ran the arenas and knew how to promote an arena that the WCW doesn't have, yes, they would do well. They would do well in the Meadowlands.
But you just said that the fans here in New York wouldn't support it because they're all WCW.
No, because they would know how to reach out and to get to those people who are not your educated wrestling fans. These are hardcore wrestling fans. How many people of you know who Carl Gotch is? How many people know who Pat O'Connor is?
How many people know who Pat Patterson is?
It seems that whenever, you hear all these bad things about wrestling, the steroids, the drugs, the homos, to get ahead, it seems that you gotta kill yourself to get like a job. What would you recommend to someone that wants to start out?
To get started in the business. Let's hear from Jim.
Recommend the guy who wants to start.
Wants to get in the business, wants to get started in the business.
First of all,
And then Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy.
Go ahead, Tim.
I love wrestling. Wrestling for 13 years has been my life. However, I would rather do without than to bend over for it. Morals, whether it's baseball or whatever, you gotta have morals about it.
Jimmy, how would you recommend someone getting started in business today? What approach do you think they should take?
Well, I tell you, I'm just glad I didn't start yesterday. The whole thing is that 10, 15 years ago, everybody knows, we had the boys, we had 15, 20 places to go and work steady, 6, 7 days a week. And now there's 2 or 3. And what is coming down to, they still run a few house shows, these big places, WWF in Atlanta. But believe me, it's going to get fewer and fewer. They don't care if they draw, or they do care if they draw, because what it's coming down to is all pay-per-view. They're going to have about 6 a year, and it's going to blow. Just like this young boy wants to get into business now. Well, he's not going to have a chance unless it's up to these 2 people to bring back them smaller territory. And this is where the fans will really get into, because it's so much exciting to go and see this live and to watch pay-per-view or on TV. So we got to get back just like it was 10, 15 years ago. And then this young boy can start in the business and have his career. And then there's plenty of places for the boys to go again. Like I say, man, I'm glad I didn't start yesterday.
I feel bad for guys like you. I honest to God do, and I'll tell you why. Because your intentions are right. You don't want to get into the drugs and all that stuff. You want to train, you want to prepare yourself, and have the opportunity, have an opportunity to get in there. I have been criticized for speaking so strong against, because when I was with McMahon, I was so sick, man, when I came back in '84 and saw what was going on. That's why I quit. Saw needles all over the place. I was a weight. I competed both Olympic lifting and powerlifting. I know about weight training, and I know about how the body responds to training and so forth. And it was so obvious what was going on here. It was disgusting. Now, first of all, they make it impossible for guys like you, because McMahon, despite the nonsense you hear, and I know this guy for 25 years, he advocates that stuff. Man, he advocated, he pushed it, he wanted you on it. He wanted you to get bigger and better all the time. This nonsense, like his bodybuilder, she says they even have stories about steroid use. Those freaks are all so heavy on that juice, it's incredible. So what happens is this, when guys like us speak up against that kind of stuff, it blows my mind, and I've been speaking in schools and different places all over where I live, and I've had people criticize me and say to me, what do you care if those guys want to use steroids? What do you care? I mean, it's their business. Number one, it's not legal, it's illegal. Number two, by them using the steroids, guys like you, if you want to get into it, unless you're willing to sacrifice your life by juicing up like these idiots do, you haven't got no chance to ever meeting your goals, your ambitions, and your desire to become what you want to become. That's why, number one, this has got to be brought out, and these guys, I hope that the law really comes down, because this is a crime, this is illegal. And it gets cleaned up, because if it gets cleaned up, and I hope to God it does, then guys like you, nobody can stop you from getting in it, because everybody will start equally, okay? There are no advantages. We used to see these guys on steroids, and we used to laugh, because whenever they got off the cycle, some of them, it was like somebody just let the air out of their balloon. That's how they would deflate. You know, have anybody seen Hogan, or he's making a movie as a ballerina? He looks like somebody just completely deflated him. Okay? I mean, that's what happens when you take this stuff. But what you don't see is what's going on inside the body. That is not visible. Okay? So when we're outspoken about it, all the fans out there, they should be against, because he said that it's a kid's show, the kids watch. Isn't it a wonderful thing for the children to see these steroid freaks and want to look like these guys? When they start pumping iron, they look in the mirror 2 weeks later, they don't see nothing. You know, because it takes years of hard work and dedication. But there's a magic way that in 2 weeks you can see the difference. And that's what they're doing to the kids. So you people, parents who have problems, you should be appalled by these people, and you should be protested against it, because all you're doing is opening the doors for people like you to make a future in professional wrestling.
But that's not actually what the guy's asking. The guy's asking that, look, first of all, Jimmy doesn't use steroids, you didn't use steroids, there are a lot of people who don't use. First of all, I wouldn't advise the guy. Now, this guy looks like a fellow with good shoulders, good frame. He looks like he can put some weight on it. He could. Naturally, if a guy's 5'2" and weighs 109 pounds, you're not going to tell him to become a professional wrestler. I don't care what the guy. If you see a guy with a good frame, there are wrestling schools. There are people who break in. You can learn. You can train. You don't have to shoot into McMahon. There are plenty of organizations like here that will give you a start. If you're really dedicated, you really eat well, train hard, break your ass for a few years, put some weight on, you're a good. How tall are you?
6'1".
All right, what do you weigh?
190.
All right, so you get up another 10, 15, 20. And why not? Go to the gym, work out, get some places. They got schools here, they got schools down there, they got a lot of wrestling schools. They can teach you the basics of professional wrestling, and they get into it. There's hope for everybody. I mean, no, wait. You didn't take steroids, right? This guy here, I was in the gym with him, 1959. Never took steroids, weighed 270 pounds. Did 38 consecutive reps with 330 pounds. I've seen him do 565 on a bench. Imagine if he took steroids, he'd done 1,700 pounds. Superman like that. He went out taking steroids. Timmy, what's wrong with Timmy? Stand up, Tim. What do you weigh, Tim?
Oh, about 218.
All right. Good size guy? Looks good. You don't need steroids. So, a guy like you, you're 6'1", work out, break your ass a little bit, get to a good gym, learn the business. Go for that. I think that's all for everybody. Yeah. Especially in smaller leagues. So that's what he was asking. He ain't asking about the steroids.
Steroid users, that guys like you want to do it clean, it would be difficult for you to get it. That's what the guy asked.
Bruno, I saw you on Larry King Live, and as far as I'm concerned, you near the end, it seemed weird how he just got kind of into his, I know you are, but what am I kind of thing. And he started just, you know what I mean? He was kind of being a baby at the end. Said, oh, okay, Bruno, this and that, you know, and just bringing up things that had nothing to do with it. And I just respected very well that you were just standing up to him and just putting him, you know, driving him right into the ground.
Well, he was lying, like he didn't know about the lawsuit. Remember I was talking about Hong Kong? I spoke to the lawyer that day, and he told me about McMahon's lawyer, had made that particular day, like 10 calls in trying to stop the kid from father, kept jacking up the money to give the kid, and he acted like, what do you thought? He didn't know anything about. He didn't know anything about steroids.
Right.
You know, and here I had to bring up about the trial, and what took place and so forth. I mean, he was like somebody, I forget who, if it's one of you people here, but somebody wrote that this guy, what the expression used, he ate my lunch on Larry King's show. Well, I don't think he ate anybody's lunch because I exposed him to be such a liar that the negative reaction that they got from it, that's what forced him on the Donahue show to try to fix a little bit the damage he had done on himself, because the reaction they got was that he lied like a dog, and this was the reaction that the WWF got from the Larry King show.
Occasional labor.
Yeah. Occasional labor, steroids, he wasn't aware of anything. Hogan told the truth on the show. You know, I mean, he was lying so bad, and it came out that he was lying so bad.
I'd like to make 2 quick points real quick.
The audience did not know anything about wrestling. The ones that talked about wrestling were plans for Vince McMahon.
That was set up.
Donna and I were told when we were brought in, we are not allowed to ask questions.
Right.
Because we were with them.
So it was a set-up audience.
The whole thing was set up.
The kid was set up in the audience, the fans, they picked
And
their own
Vince
way.
McMahon was also surprised there that day.
That's right.
He was supposedly invited to be on the show and he refused until that day.
But that's what I'm saying, the general public impression.
Champions did. And I want to leave you with this for next year. Maybe you guys can put on your thinking caps. I know Moolah and Cauliflower Alley Club, Carl Lauer over there, have thought about this. Don Leibel, many others have. We've got to start taking care of our own, and this is people like Jerry Graham, Johnny Valentine, Pampero Firpo, guys that are totally broke. Danny McShane just passed away. He was in a wheelchair, almost penniless. I don't know if there's a solution. I hope you guys can come up with it next year and talk about how we can take care of some of our own. Do something, right? Besides that, there's got to be something we can do, because our heroes, you know, some people...
Maybe something like a Hall of Fame with proceeds going to help wrestlers who are destitute now. You know, there's so many cases that I hear every day. Everybody, when they leave this business, and they're not so very, very smart financially and investing money, there's nothing. There's no pension. There's nothing in this business. And it's very, very sad. There's so many cases like that, Mike, where guys don't have a pot to piss in when they leave the business, you know? And that's why there should be some, maybe Hall of Fame, maybe it's an organization.
It's got to be up to us, medical and some kind of retirement plan. And, you know, it's got to be run honestly. I just don't know what this is.
How can we expect others to take care of it?
I guess everyone knows that John is my brother. And, I'm really proud of him for what he does and, you know, about having these conventions. I don't think anything like this was ever done before. And, you know, he gets some negativity, but I think a lot of people, you know, really should support him for what he does.
Another guy here in the audience right now, I'd like to acknowledge Nikolai Volkoff, who was... in here, and I want to thank everybody on panel.
Funny or not, I mean, there's been some things I'd rather not even mention, but I think one of the things that was a bit embarrassing and